Welcome in. I'm back, but also kind of because it's still off season. There's still not a ton to talk about, but we are beginning my, I guess, NFL divisional breakdown and I guess preview for the next season. Starting here with the AFC South, starting with the Indianapolis Colts. So I have a mental ranking of how they're going to finish in the division, and I'm going to go through and talk to the positive and negatives of each team and kind of where I see them finishing based on their best and worst outcomes kind of thing. And then I'll come to a consensus at the end, which I've already created in my mind. But so talking about the Indianapolis Colts, obviously they let Michael Pittman go. They are going to be running with Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Ashton Doolin, and some generic backups that honestly really aren't even that notable, other than shout out Laquan Treadwell. Um, but that's not the strong suit of this team. The strong suit of this team is Tyler Warren, their offensive line, and Jonathan Taylor. And I think that as long as Daniel Jones can stay healthy and play, even up to, I'd say 75% of what he did prior to his injury for an extended period of time, I think that this Colts offense can be top 10 again. They were the number one team for the first 8 or 9 weeks and then just fell off a cliff. I think that that will come right back. And as long as they, stay healthy, Jonathan Taylor has, been consistently on and off injured. But if he can stay healthy, I think that this team has a legitimate chance to win this division. That's not where I have them ranked, but I think with their offense, I think Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, I think are both going to take huge steps in the offense. It seems like Josh Downs is going to be a lot more underneath, and Tyler Warren is going to take over the Michael Pittman role in the sense of being the over the middle, big reception, contested catch guy. I think that Tyler Warren's fantastic, but in general, I think that both Alec Pierce and Josh Downs are going to get a lot more work. And if as long as Alec Pierce is worth the money that they paid him, this offense should be clicking right again as long as Daniel Jones is healthy. It really depends on how his Achilles healed. But he is working 7-on-7 already, so we'll see. As for the defense, their defense was extremely injured, you know, after that's about that same time. They traded for Sauce Gardner. He went down with an injury. Both Rover Stewart and DeForest Buckner were hurt. Their linebackers were not that good. Obviously, most of those guys are gone now. And yeah, I mean, they did lose a few corners slash safeties, whatever you want to consider those guys who left in the offseason. But I think that this defense is set up to be extremely good next year with JT Tuimoluau and Laiatu Latu. Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, that front four is pretty darn good. I really like the CJ Allen pickup that they had this year. And their DB room, especially if Charvarius Ward comes back to what he was prior to last season with the injuries and all the weird stuff going on with his kid and all that stuff, I think is very like they had really bad injury luck, and I think that will return to the median of maybe being a lot better off. And I could see this team being a 10 to 11 win team, maybe even 12 if they could stay healthy. This team right now for me is ranked at number 2. I have them at number 2. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans. Why the Titans? Why next? I don't know, because I felt like it. I think the Titans are still going to finish 4th in this division. I just don't think they're there yet. I think Cam Ward is going to be, a perennial starter in the NFL. I think he's a very good quarterback. I really like him. I like the fact that they signed Mitch Trubisky to help him kind of develop. People hate on Mitch, but Mitch has been in a lot of different situations and has just proved again and again that he's a good, valuable veteran quarterback. Their running backs, I'm not sure how I feel about either Spears or Pollard, and I really think that actually Nicholas Singleton towards the end of the season could come on pretty strong and take over for a guy who's never healthy and a guy who kind of also is never healthy, but I mean, he rushes for 1,000 yards, but it's like the most disgusting 1,000 yards you've ever seen. I don't know. He doesn't have that pop, and I think Singleton could be that. As for their wide receiver core, I really think Carnell Tate is going to be able to help Cam Ward in Cam Ward's scramble drills. Carnell Tate actually knows how to catch the ball, unlike the wide receivers they were running out there last year. Wan'Dale Robinson, great, short yardage, make a guy miss, get 7 yards. Not a huge yak threat, but he did just finish with over 1,000 yards last season, and I think that if they just give Cam Ward easy game dump offs, easy game motion with some movement on the back end to see what kind of the coverage it is. I really think Wan'Dale and Carnell Tate are a pretty good one too, and I was a big Calvin Ridley guy coming out of Alabama. He did great for Atlanta, and then he got popped with the gambling, and then he went to the Jags, and that wasn't good, and he hasn't been good for Tennessee. Could we see him step back into a solidified wide receiver 3 role? Potentially, I don't know. But other than that, I like Gunnar Helm. I think that he is a pretty good tight end. He was good when he came out of Texas. And last year he had quite a bit of he had quite a bit of targets towards the end of the season last year. 7, 2, 4, 3, 2. I wouldn't be surprised if those get an uptick towards the moving into this next season, just again with easy button stuff. My biggest problem with Tennessee's offense is specifically their offensive line. I don't think Dan Moore was worth the contract that he was paid. Peter Skoronski has been okay at best so far. I don't know much about Austin Schlottman or Cordell Voisin, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It could just be that, they're solid and they don't give up problems, but it could also be that they're really bad, and we'll see that. I talked about Pat Coogan, and I really liked him coming out of Indiana. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually gets some playing time, depending on how good Schlottman is. And J.C. Latham, while he is a good run blocking offensive tackle, I would really like to see him develop in the pass blocking. I think it was an overpay when they selected him, and we'll see how it continues to develop. But moving on to the defense, I really think that they made some pretty good moves in the offseason. I wouldn't say that they're great. I am not a huge John Franklin Myers, but I know a lot of people are. I love Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's fantastic. And I actually like the Jermaine Johnson pickup. I think that he's a solid defensive end. The Keldrick Folk, I think he might end up starting over one of the two. And depending on how he develops with Robert Saleh, I think he could be fantastic. Cedric Gray had a great season last year, finishing with 164 tackles. I thought he, for a second-year guy, did pretty well. We'll see how he continues again with Robert Saleh. Developed Fred Ward into what he was or is. I think that could be a potential next guy. Cody Barton, I think, is a solid middle linebacker, and I think this DB room, I'm not, I like Armani Hooker. He's pretty good. I like Alontae Taylor, and Cordell Flott is okay. But overall, I think that the defense is going to go as Robert Saleh's scheme goes, and he went and got his guys. So I think this team could be much better than the, second, third, fifth, whatever they ended up being last year. I think they could be better than that. I wouldn't be surprised if this team gets to 5 or 6 wins this year. But I expect them to be a lot more competitive, but still finish in fourth. Jacksonville Jaguars. I am a really big Trevor Lawrence believer. I think that last year is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing with Lawrence. I think he's going to kind of have not Peyton Manning career in the sense of being Peyton Manning, but in the sense that he might just be a late bloomer and now he's going to start really picking it up. I think in this system with Liam Cohen, he can really excel. I'm intrigued to see what they do with Bashal Tutin and Chris Rodriguez. They went out and got Chris Rodriguez. He was a Liam Cohen guy at Kentucky, um, from what I understand. They have some outstanding receiving weapons. Brian Thomas, who had a really bad year last year, but he had been dealing with some wrist injury, and who knows, he might want out. Jacoby Myers is just purely doesn't drop the ball. Like Larry Fitzgerald doesn't drop the ball, doesn't drop the ball. He came in, he did fantastic. Parker Washington stepped onto the scene last year and exploded. I thought he was awesome. And Brenton Strange is a big athletic receiving tight end that can really get it done. My problem with them is I really don't know how I feel about this O line. I think they were okay, and I think if they can all stay healthy and kind of mesh a little better, they might be pretty good. But Cole Van Lannon, like I don't really know who this guy is. Like I know I know Anton Harrison, he's okay. Patrick McCarry's getting old. Ezra Cleveland also getting old, so I really like the Emmanuel Pregnon. I think he might end up being a starter for them, whether or not this year or next year. But I really liked that pick in the draft. You still have to see what Travis Hunter can be both on the offense and defense. Like he could be fantastic at both. He may just slot in and be one or the other, but the defense is kind of where I start to get worried. I really like this defensive line. Eric Armstead, Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, Dennis Gardeck. We talked about this when I talked about the defensive line ed group. Those guys are great. Foyesade Oluwakan's getting old, but I still think he's pretty good. I like Jack Kaiser on their team. I didn't realize he was on the Jags. But Ventrell Miller, I don't know how good he is going to be as their yeah, I don't know how good Ventrell Miller is going to step in for Devin Lloyd leaving. I think that's going to be a big problem. And they lost a few guys from their DB room. I think Monteric Brown could be legit and Antonio Johnson could be good, but we're relying a lot on Travis Hunter and Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray, guys who are either unproven or just hasn't, shown that they are start worthy. So I worry that this defense could let down this offense, but if the defense can, you know, show up how last year's defense did, or even close to it, and next this offense can take a big step, whether that's Brian Thomas Jr. waking back up or Travis Hunter getting there and Bashal Tutin kind of getting it into gear, I still worry about this offensive line. I really think that they could finish first in the AFC South again, but I am going to put them at 3 just because I think their record or their schedule is going to get harder. I think that the Colts are not just going to be easy wins again this year. Yeah, I don't think the Colts are going to be easy wins for them this year like they were last. I actually think the Colts are going to end up finishing better with a better record. I trust their defense a little bit more and their offense showed out. But I could see Jacksonville being 1, Colts being 2, and then this next team finishing third just because I'm really getting worried about their offense. And that team, the final team that we're going to be talking about, is the Houston Texans. I am really worried about what CJ Stroud has put on the field the last 2 years. It has not been good. And you can say that maybe that has been the offensive line and that Keelan Rutledge and Wyatt Teller and Ariante Ursary really start to pick it up along with the Braden Smith acquisition. They went out and addressed offensive line. I like Nico Collins. I love the David Montgomery trade. I think he's going to be a workhorse for at least the next 2 years. And Woody Marks is still a good switch up when they need him. Tank Dell maybe coming back from injury will look okay or even a bit like himself last year, but I thought Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll looked pretty good last year. If this offensive line can figure it out and they can be somewhat productive in the running game, which they were not last year, and CJ Stroud starts to put it together, this defense is top 5 in the league. We've already talked about this. They have one of the best edge duos. They have one of the best DB rooms and some of the better linebackers. Their interior defensive line, I'm not a huge fan, but they did just get Caden McDonald, which was a steal. Um, so yeah, I mean, you're really banking on CJ Stroud, and who knows, maybe this is if CJ Stroud really doesn't put it together, this is a bench CJ Stroud and play Davis Mills. Like Davis Mills looked better when he played last year, and maybe that's just what it needs, or maybe it really is just coming down to the running game has been so bad that with a revamped offensive line and a better running back that you can go forward with this offense and CJ Stroud looks better in a more dominant offensive run scheme that he can then play the play action game and hit, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, or even some of these other wide receivers who are a little unproven, not yet there on, some play action shots. I think it comes down to how CJ Stroud plays, and based on the last 2 years, I am a little worried. I think this defense is going to really step it up for this team, and this offensive line, if they mesh properly with, I believe they got a new OC this year. So yeah, they did just get a new OC from the Rams. They're trying to pick off that McVay tree, but I worry that maybe I always worry about just picking random guys from a tree. He was the passing game coordinator and tight ends coach, so maybe this passing offense will look better. But if the run game does not pick it up, I really have a worry that this team is going to flounder to third in this division. But I am going to project them for first in this division. So I am going to come out with the Houston Texans at number 1, the Colts at number 2, the Jaguars at number 3, and the Tennessee Titans at number 4. I will say I think this division is going to be extremely competitive, and the top 3 teams are all going to be fighting for 1, 2, maybe even 3 playoff spots. This division has been a laughing stock for a long time, and it's been like one good team, just who's going to win it. It was the Colts for a while, then it was the Titans with Derrick Henry. Colts were really bad, Texans really bad. Then Deshaun Watson came in. The other 2 teams were kind of floundering. Now the Jags are really stepping into it, and the Texans defense is really kicking up into high gear. If you can get rookie year CJ Stroud, I really think that this division is going to be quite competitive and actually a fun division to watch with all the storylines. Daniel Jones coming back from his Achilles tear, CJ Stroud coming off of what was a horrible playoff game and horrible playoff run and just really bad year. David Montgomery on a new team. You get Jacksonville with what is Brian Thomas Jr. going to be? They have a lot of receivers that they're paying. Travis Hunter was injured, didn't play the rest of the year last year, and now what is he going to be? They traded a lot to get him, and he needs to be worth that to, you know, and play like the first or second, whatever second overall pick that they traded for him to the Browns. I really think that those storylines, and then new offensive coordinator in Brian Dable for the Titans, new coach in Robert Saleh. You get Carnell Tate for the Titans. You get Wan'Dale Robinson. You draft Nick Singleton. Like you make a ton of free agent moves on defense. Are the Titans going to be somewhat more competitive, or are they just going to be a bad team again? I really think it comes like these storylines are going to be some of the most entertaining of the entire NFL. And so it comes down to, I think the biggest switch up will be how CJ Stroud plays and how this offense looks in the Houston Texans. But that's just the opinion of a ball knower. We'll see you later.